So hi everyone, welcome to our webinar. We'll start and we'll let the others join when they arrive. So welcome to our Insight series. On behalf of Premier Continuum, big thank you for being here today for another session of our Insights webinar series. We're thrilled to have you with us. As our last webinar reached a record of 500 registrations. We're especially excited to continue the momentum with today's topic, and we're glad you're part of it. So my name is Mary Helen Primo. I'm been working in business continuity for more than 25 years. I'm Executive Vice President here at Premier Continuum, and I have the pleasure to be your host and facilitators for today's session. As business continuity and resilience practitioner, I've had the opportunity of developing BCMS for multiple organizations. I'm also a BCI instructor since 2008. And I've actually served as, a past president of the BCI Canada chapter. And in 2023, I was honored to be a consultant of the year for the BCI Americas Award. But that's enough about me. As you will discover, our insight sessions are all about sharing knowledge, exchanging ideas, and exploring practical solutions tailored for resilience professionals like you. And as you will expect, today's session is going to be on the myths and realities of a good business continuity plan. I hope our session will inspire you and equip you for the challenge ahead. Just some quick notes before we dive in. Well, please ask your question through the chat feature. And do remember that the session recording will be available on our website after today's session within the next few days. If you do like to have a copy of the presentation or, have or reach out to us, please, do so using the chat feature, or you can send us an email. And if we do run into any issues, please let us know through the chat again, and we'll keep an eye on it, my team and I. We're here to help and make sure that you do have a pleasant session. So we will debunk the myths and reality of the business continuity plan today. That's our topic. A few words on Premier Continuum. Business continuity plans have truly been part of our daily life, obviously, for the past 25 years. And let me tell you, over the years, we've seen the good and the bad and everything in between. So Premier Continuum, whether, you've been with us regarding the, we're primarily based, we're based in Canada, but we have clients throughout the world. We've mainly focused on business continuity, but we also cover related topics as well. And as I did show on the previous slide, well, we do have, not only do we have a software solution, parasolution to assist in managing the business continuity program, but we're also instructors of the Business Continuity Institute, and this for more than 15 years. We're also training partners of ICOR, and we offer consulting services. So we, depending on various ways you can engage with us. And in terms of the actual, topic of today, I'll have the pleasure to have Élaine Comeau speak to you. So Élaine does have more than 25 years of experience in business continuity, worked mainly in the financial services sector, and has handled major crises, both at a strategic and operational level. She is a certified member of the Business Continuity Institute, also lead implementer, and is one of our dear instructors at Premier Continuum. So without, if you do have, have any questions, please keep them till the end. And we're so lucky that you're with us today. I know we were having some little issues before we started. So Élaine, it's now your time to jump in.
Do you hear me?
Yes, we do.
Okay, good. I just want to see, I'm on, like, as a good business continuity person, my internet is not working this morning, so I am on my phone. So we have a plan B, so we're going to talk about good business continuity. So this is a perfect example to have a plan B. So thank you very much, Marie-Élaine. So you understand me. I don't think I could put my camera on, so unfortunately,
Oh, we're
I'm good.
seeing you.
You
We're seeing you. Yes, we are.
okay, I can't see myself, so okay, good, thanks. So thank you very much, Marie-Élaine. I'd like to start by saying that my presentation is based on a quarter of century of experience, so that doesn't make me any younger. And I know every situation is very unique, so therefore I invite you to take the sharing of experience as source of ideas that you can adapt to your own reality. So let's start. Can you change the page, Marie-Élaine, because I don't have a control here. So let's start with a few basic concepts. The goal here is to establish our common language and shared understanding that we'll be using for this presentation. So first of all, what is business continuity? And I'm not just talking here about the plan, I'm talking about the program, which we'll be covering a little later. So according to ISO 22301, it's the capability of an organization to continue the delivery of products and services within acceptable timeframes predefined at a predefined capacity during disruption. So what are the advantages of having a program overall? Having a more resilient organization, again, gaining a better understanding of its operations, optimizing processes, continuity solutions, and work environments, responding quickly, effectively, credible response to business disruptions, and preserving the organization reputation. So we can go to the next slide, please. So a few key elements before starting. So before starting to build, create, or document your business continuity plan, it's important to address some key elements. First point, distinguish between the theory and the practice. So it's essential, to understand the fundamentals and best practices. However, what is true in theory may not always apply in practice, especially within your environment and your reality. So recognizing the difference between theory and practice helps acknowledge that reality is often more complex and nuanced than theoretical models. As such, we aim for a more flexible and adaptable approach. So adaptability is key here. In my opinion, theory remains important. It supports knowledge development, fosters search for new solutions, and advanced expertise in the field. Theory also helps developing a professional perspective. The relationship between theory and practice allows practitioners, you and I, to gain a broader and more nuanced view of your area of expertise. Theory also encourages, according to my experience, a critical approach to practice, which fosters continuous learning and improvement. Second point I'd like to make is key challenges and risk. It's crucial to identify the main risks and challenges, ideally in advance and not during the delivery process. For example, lack of shared understanding. By shared understanding, I mean clearly defining parameters such as standards, templates, expectation, and roles and responsibilities. Why is this important? Is to avoid misunderstanding and align everyone's efforts. From the start, it's essential to establish clear parameters so that everyone knows exactly what needs to be achieved and within which timeframes. This also helps to manage resources, time, such as time, money, personnel, material, etc., efficiently reducing the risk of waste or unforeseen overruns. Having a shared understanding also allows for objective progress measurements. It makes it easier to track progress, perform evaluations, what we call also quality assurance, and compare results to initial plans so that adjustments can be made as needed. So the point number 3 I want to make, the key point, is finding your winning formula. To avoid misunderstanding and confusions, I recommend having or establishing at least a glossary of terms or a set of definitions, standards, if not already done, available in your policy. Especially for key terms, for example, if you use MTPD, if you use MBCO, RTO, RPO, RTA, or any other acronyms that you would like to use in your program. Essential, again, also establish a common definition of what do you mean by essential priorities, critical, vital activities, roles and responsibilities. We're talking here about such plan owners, administrators, approvers, coordinators, etc. Why? Because this will improve efficiency, eliminate uncertainty and delays, reduce the back and forth clarification during the process. Also helps to ensure consistency and clarity. We're going to be comparing apples to apples when defining critical, priority, or important activities. For example, by having a clear list of sequence, a list and sequence of critical activities and processes, you ensure logic and alignment. So what is for your organization a critical versus a priority or essential activity? Finally, having these discussions early on helps to identify risk. It allows you to anticipate potential obstacles and plan solutions or necessary adjustments ahead of time. Next slide, please. One of the things I say often is business continuity is a department of miracles. Why? Because we are often asked to deliver even though our resources are limited, whether in terms of time, deadline, budget, people, or material. And yet we still manage to achieve results and deliver what initially seemed impossible. I have my idea. Perhaps it's because we operate in the solution mode, we understand urgencies, we have a cross-functional view of the organization, we are flexible, and we know how to adapt quickly. Next page, please. Another thing that I use often, an answer to many questions, it depends. It depends on the timing of the crisis. It depends on the organization's maturity, on the program itself, the scope of your program, the time and budget available. I often say it depends is the guess who always shows up at every business continuity activity. And I'll be using that a few times during this session. Next page, please. Another key factor is ultimately having a good company, a good understanding of the company's organizational or business continuity culture. I don't want to spend too much time on this page other than to tell you how important it is to understand the environment in which you operate. So according to BCI's GPG, Good Practice Guideline 7.0, it's important to study the environment and operating context, identify continuity stakeholders, assess the communication styles and tools used within the organization. BCI has a complete course and you have the GPG, and I encourage you to watch or to re-listen to Margaret Millett's presentation. It's on the Premier Continuum website, and we'll include the link in the chat. Next page, please. So let's start from the beginning. If I follow BCI's GPG, the Good Practice Guideline, we'll talk in detail about, they talk in detail about BCM. This is the wheel that we use in the BCM, in the BCI course. More specifically, in the next few slides, I will be concentrating on certain professional practices, what we call PP3, 4, 5, and 6. So to create an effective business continuity plan, you must, first of all, identify the priority activities to maintain and know the dependencies and resources to support these activities. This is done in the PP3 or the professional practice 3, the pale green here on the wheel. So, and also we'll determine the risks, also done in the PP3. So we're going to analyze, we should have analyzed potential internal and external threats and possible disaster scenarios. The next step is to implement measures. All of this is done before you need to document your business continuity plan. So implement measures and to be able to respond to them. So this means ideally having made the necessary arrangements to recover within a reasonable time frame. For example, if it means working with the IT to implement a backup solution to transfer calls from a call center to another call center during crisis. This refers to the PP4, so the light blue, and the PP5, the dark blue, the enabling solutions. The next part, or the next professional practice that we use as well, is validation. That will also cover the updating, the maintenance, and this is very important for having a good business continuity plan, is all the maintenance, the updating, and the quality assurance, like the validations, etc. So this would be done during the PP6 activities. Next page, please. So I'd like to maybe to go over 3 activities, 2 of which must be done or at least prepared before proceeding to the development or updating of the business continuity plans. I'm talking about the implementation continuity solutions. So we must ensure that the solutions to maintain or to restore the essential activities or prioritize activities that we saw in PP3, the solutions and the workarounds that we worked on in PP4, they need to be carried out. So we need to have, we must designate or have a response structure in place. So know the composition of your response teams needed to mobilize and deploy teams during the incident. We need to look at the strategic, tactical, operational. More in the upcoming slides, I'll go in more in detail, but basically it's who does what, when, and how. That must be already set up before we start documenting or updating our plans. So finally, once this is done, we can proceed again to develop continuity plans, create or update the guidance, guidance documents detailing the response procedures and activities a specific response team must follow. Also covered in the next slides. Marie-Élaine, next slide. Okay, so before we get to that, we need to understand as well what type of plan. When I talked about shared understanding, this is a good example. So, what type of plans does your organization need? Is it by hierarchy, by structure, organizational structure, by business unit, by team? How many levels? How many teams or plans, sub teams, by vice presidency or by sector or by process, what we call end-to-end activities. So it's important to know. It's important to know if plans should be. Yeah, it's important to know if plans should be. If plans should be by teams or documented by process. End to end, it's multiple teams will be involved in the process, so a little bit more complex. Do we want full plans or mini plans? Mini plans would be for maybe less critical units or no plans at all. You can decide if for your organization, again, that it depends. For you want plans, full plans for all business units that need to be recovered within 72 hours. And for all the rest, you could say, I just want a mini plan where we're going to document maybe some roles, responsibilities, overall, very high level, etc. Well, that's the difference. That's decisions that you must make in the beginning. We need to also understand the difference between operational, tactical, strategic plans, and depending on your organization, tactical and strategic could be combined into one single plan. So here, if we look at the pyramid on the slide, on the bottom part, the last level, we talk about operational plans. So at the base, this should be what we call business continuity plans. So it's at the execution level. Then you would have the tactical, cross-functional coordination level, more at the coordination level. Disaster recovery plan that could be considered a tactical plan or could be a relocation plan. At the top of the pyramid, you'll find a strategic plan. This could be a crisis management plan that would be a good example of a strategic plan. Same thing for, they're going to be responsible for more like the supervision, the direction, the reputation, and communication. So again, these are all decisions that you must make beforehand. Another point that I'd like to make is it's not found in the BCI documentation, but it's something that I've been asked many times in my career. It's to produce what we call a playbook. It's a plan for a specific scenario. It's often a special request that comes from top management. It's what we call what keeps them up at night. So it could be a specific plan on cybersecurity, a plan for a major data loss. But so it's a very specific plan for a very specific team. So it doesn't mean necessarily you will have them, but again, it all depends what is the request within your organization. Next page, please. So finally, I've arrived at the business continuity plan, and there's a lot to be said. So here are some aspects to consider when determining the necessary level of detail. Documentation for a BCP must be detailed enough to be accurate and usable, that I can use in a high stress situation, but also clear enough to be accessible to all stakeholders. A well-documented BC is a balance, precise enough to guide a rapid response, but not so large as to slow down the implementation. So how many pages, I'm often asked? Well, it depends on the plan. A plan for a very critical team will certainly have more detail than a plan for a team with a recovery time of up to 30 days. So here are a few aspects to consider when determining the level of detail required. I said understanding for all stakeholders. So a BCP should be understood by people with different levels of technical knowledge, including frontline employees, the people that will actually use the plan, and senior management often want to see the plan if they want to approve it, they want to understand it. So steering committees, internal audits, regulators. I said earlier, include a glossary to explain technical or specific terms, or reference where to find. Do you have a glossary in the policy, standards, or other documents? Need to include specific actionable instructions. Provide detailed steps for who does what, when, and how. For example, who to contact first, what resource to use, what processes to follow. Some of the critical procedures that you might need, for example, evacuation plans, system restarts, DR plan, communication plans, must be clearly described, but not necessarily in your plan. They could be attached to your business continuity plan, or at least indicated where you could find the information. They must cover a variety of scenarios. I'll come back to that a little later in more detail. The BCP must describe response plan for different types of crisis. Each scenario should have specific and adapted responses. Even when detailed, the BCP should remain flexible enough to address unforeseen situations. So remember, the cause is less important than the impacts. Whether it's a fire, water damage causing the site unavailability, the goal is to understand how to respond to such scenarios. Next page, please. Next place, please.
I'm working on it.
Okay.
Oops, sorry.
Technical issues. And
today is the
I was just brought a little paper to say that it's down in it's in Montreal. Videotron is down, so our service provider is down. So it's not it's not just me. Okay, links to other plans. I think we're okay. Include.
Are you seeing it? Is it everything?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
perfect.
Include reference to other plans such as disaster recovery, communication plans, third party, to ensure consistency overall crisis management. We talked about document dependencies, very important. I'm going to talk about that. And external parties, et cetera. Accessibility in updates, documentation. Maybe I think it was my mistake, Marie-Élaine. Can you go back to the previous slide? Because I had a few things to say. Sorry, my fault. We didn't talk about the container, tools, etc., applications. So we're going to talk about as well the maintenance, updating, etc. All these things should be preset. When I said about common understanding, these are the basis that we need to understand. So a few words here about the container or the format. Using a BC tool versus an application versus Word, Excel, or in-house application. So what are some of the advantages and disadvantages? So some of the advantages for sure, if you have a tool, a BC tool, off-the-shelf tool, or in-house tool, it's accessibility and availability, centralized information. You can get it's a big database. So once you've input the information, it's like a big database. So you could do queries, reports, collaboration, and working in real time. You could share the information, approval and change management. All this can be automated. A few words about data security and regulator compliance, access management. If it's a centralized tool, maybe you have already an admin access team that are responsible for all the maintenance, the admin maintenance. So who has access to the tool, which part of the plans, etc. That's one of the advantages of having a centralized tool. automation, efficiency, and standardization. Sorry. BIA data is integrated into automatically in the business continuity plans if you have a tool. Templates so you can are applied everywhere. So if you're using it as well for your exercise program, so information that you enter, and part of one of the templates could be easily transferred or used automatically in other parts, other modules if you have other features in the tool as well. Backup, the question that often I'm asked is, if I have a tool, do I still need a Word or PDF version? Again, it depends. If you have the mobile application of your tool, you might have all your information that you need on your phone. Do I need a copy in SharePoint, OneDrive, Teams? Again, that depends on the way you work within your organization. One thing is important is that you need to have access to the plan if something did happen. So always think of the worst case. So if I don't have access to my system, where do I get access to my plan? So the disadvantages, well, often it's the cost. It could be the cost. So you need to build a business case to get the budget, initial budget. Expertise, knowledge about the tool itself. So if you do have extensive training about the tool, how to use the tool, maybe the business continuity team will be using it on a daily basis, but maybe some business units will use it once a year for updating their business impact analysis or their business continuity plan. So they have to provide for more training on a yearly basis, etc. So these are maybe some of the small disadvantages. An advantage to have Word and Excel. Well, for sure, everyone knows how to use the Word, Excel. Can you keep your plans on Teams? The downside is there's going to be a lot of copy and paste because what is from one document, put input in one document, it doesn't automatically transfer into the other document. So you're going to have to have someone doing the cut and paste for the updating as well. If you're doing a quality assurance or an effective challenge on the plan, you would hopefully have track changing in the Word, so you know exactly what has been changed or updated. So this is maybe the downside of having Word and Excel, but again, for some organizations, that's what they have to deal with. Now it's next page, sorry. Okay. Okay, interdependencies, like a few words here. I'd like to revisit some points that deserve our attention. The internal and external dependencies. So dependencies with other groups, unit teams, or suppliers. My experience, if it's critical, it must be there. So if the absence impact, if the non-availability of another team, internal team or external team, vendor, impacts one of your critical activities, it must be in the business impact analysis and therefore in the business continuity plan. A lot of information, like I just said, comes from the BIA, so it goes from the BIA into the plan. So that, again, that's an advantage of having a tool. Otherwise, expect, again, a lot of copy and paste. The maintenance element, like who created the plan, who validates the plan, who approves the plan, and according to the frequency defined hopefully in your policy or following a major change. Okay, so that's the wording that I would find in the policy. It's predefined intervals, so maybe once a year for all critical plans, maybe every second year for other plans, etc. So what is the frequency that's established in your policy, and following a major change? So what constitutes a major change? Here are a few examples. Again, if it's going to impact your strategies, your solutions and your strategies, you must have it in your plan, or you must update it in your plan. And again, you're going to determine the frequency. After a major change, do you give them up to 3 months once the change has been implemented? Some of the changes: stakeholder contact information, number of resources available if there's been a reorg in your organization, introduction to new technology or changes or removal or changing or replacing an application or an environment. You need to update if it's going to have an impact to your plan. You need to change it. Physical changes to premises. We're moving from one building to the next, all our staff now are working remotely. We don't have, there's no dependency on the site. So I have to remember to go update my plan. Introduction to changes in third parties, outsourcing, mergers, acquisitions, reorgs, new activities, withdrawal from key activities, products, services. So again, these are all what we could consider major changes. Update. Okay, that's another one. Frequency. Is it annually or other based on criticality? Again, I've seen all plans or plans that need to be recovered within 72 hours. It's mandatory to update it on an annual basis. Otherwise, it could be every 2 years, except some portions of the plan. Again, these are common decisions that you have to make prior to starting either updating or creating your plans. Another big question is appendixes or annexes and tools. Well, that will vary from group to group or from plan to plan. So specialized equipment, suppliers. So all the elements I need for my solution and meet the established deadline. So that's very important. Again, depending on the size, on not just the size, but on the criticality of the team, they might need a lot of external documents. So again, the idea is not to rewrite everything in the plan, is to attach or refer where you can find the information. Next page, please. As I said earlier, I want to come back to the scenarios. Basically, there's 4 typical or basic scenarios. And Marilyn, you can go to the next page. I think it's more explicit. And we're just going to click on the 4 before. Okay. So these typically are the 4 scenarios that I would say you would find in a business continuity plan or program. The first one would be loss of access or to the building or to the premises. One of the questions that you have to ask is and you should have so people know exactly what they have to plan for how many days. Is it for loss of the access to the building for 10 days, 30 days, etc.? So people can plan accordingly. The remote and hybrids. Before the pandemic, people were coming to the office full time. And now you could have maybe teams that are fully 100% working remotely. So do we need to have solutions for that in our business continuity plans? So if you let go the premises after the pandemic, people were not coming in, so maybe some of the floor space is no longer available. So what are your strategies, your solutions for bringing people back if there is a regional disaster? Second scenario that you would find in the plan is loss or unavailability or critical systems. Again, are we talking about a failure or a loss? If I'm losing the system, again, the duration, is it for 4 hours, 12 hours, 1 day, 24 to 48, 48 to 72, or longer periods? So again, these are things that you have to predetermine when you're writing your solutions or finding strategies and solutions. The third scenario that you will find is unavailability of key persons or key staff or key roles in your team, or a percentage of the employees. Are we talking about 35%, 40%, 50%? And again, unavailability of key person, is it for 3 days, 1 week, 1 month? So again, people need to know that, because they're going to be asking questions anyway when you're going to be helping them build their solutions and their strategies. What am I planning for? If the person is not there for 3 days, I can live with that. If the person is not there for 30 days, well, then that's a different story. So it has to be clearly set in your objectives. What are the assumptions? Unavailability of key people for 30 days, for example. And the last one is the unavailability of a key supplier or partner, an external partner, even if the clause is included in the contract, because often I get that pushback. People say, we have a contract, it's signed, it says they have a disaster recovery plan, they have a business continuity plan, but what if things happen? So what if they're not available? So they're not there tomorrow morning and they're not there for a long period of time. What are your workarounds? So again, that has to be very clearly understand for how long as well. What is the duration? So again, you have a few examples here for each of the scenarios. You would have the strategy, and we have a solution, and I'll get into that next. But for each scenario, you need to know what are my solutions, what are my generic activities. This is the documentation I would have in my plan. So I call it generic activities, and this is some of the companies I've seen. Some of my plans I've done. I've had generic activities, same activities for all the teams, no matter what team I'm working with. It's all the same type of activities. So we call them generic activities. And we have specific activities. So what are really specific to that team? It's not all teams that would do this type of would implement this type of solution or activities. So what are specific activities for the team that have to be documented in the plan? So what actions I need to take, including returning to normal. Okay, so that often is all overlooked. So what are the different activities, generic and specific, that I need to document in my plan? So the when and the how do I to get back to normal? So when I consider I'm business as usual. The debriefing part, or the postmortem, lessons learned, lessons observed versus lessons learned. For me, I make it different. I've If there is an exercise or if there's a real incident, I've made a lot of observations. Any of these observations need to be put into action plans. I will call them action lessons learned, because I want to learn from what I just observed and not just an observation. It's something critical enough that I need to change, either in a activity, a duration, etc. So I want to turn the observations into lessons learned. So what actions to correct what we observe? So again, basically in a plan, I want to see who does what, when, and how. Again, as I said earlier, the information needs to be detailed enough to be accurate and usable, which I can use in a high stress situation, but also clear enough to be accessible to all stakeholders. Next page, please. Um, Again, maybe one last thing I forgot to mention, worst case scenario. Um, Again, worst case scenario, it's often something, yeah, thank you, Marilyn. It's always, and it's gonna vary from one team to the next. That's why when we do either the BIA or the business continuity plan, we always ask them, what are your peak periods? And we always make them think, when we're talking about solutions and strategies. Again, strategies describe the overall approach, like for the organization to meet the requirements. So example, remote working for an extended period. And the solution would be, how do I implement that strategy, including arrangements, methods, procedures, treatments, associated costs. For example, sending everyone home, but that means that entails that they have to bring their laptop home every time they leave the office if they're working primarily from the office, etc. So again, this is what we call solutions, but we have to always put ourselves in the mindset if it's a worst case scenario. So it's not the best, it's the worst time. Like this morning, I'm losing internet. I don't have backgrounds. You see I'm in my craft room, so you see my background. I have nothing. I'm on my phone. So for me, that's the worst case situation this morning. But I have a workaround, the phone. So the worst case scenario, so plan according to worst case scenario. For each, and again, that's going to vary from one team. And again, very important, establishing the common understanding. So loss of building, loss of applications or environments, of vendors, for how long, what's the duration? So people will really understand, and our plans will be built in the same way, on the same basis or assumptions. Okay, next page, please. Once the plan is documented, there's elements that need to be considered before we can say it's actually completed and done, and we can check that one off for this year. I'm referring to the concept of what we call either effective challenge, or could also be known as quality assurance activity. I can refer, and I think many organizations can understand what we talked about. When I talk about first and second and third line of defense. The first line of defense would be the operational unit, the actual, like in the field, the people that do the work. They're responsible for the day-to-day management of their risks, including the business continuity risks. So they are responsible for building their plans or business continuity activities. The second line what we call the support functions, such as the corporate business continuity, the enterprise risk management or the risk manager, compliance. They supervise the frontline activities. They define the rules, provide tools for the operational units on the floor, on the ground. And the third line of defense would be internal audit, that provide an independent and objective assessment of the overall effectiveness of the internal controls and the risk assess management. So that, again, depending on how your shop works, so how does it work in your organization? Do you do a quality control? Okay, so how do you validate, approve the plan, do the effective challenge? Do you do an effective challenge? So who approves it? Who approves it? Who approves the plan? When do you consider the plan to be completed? Again, a quality assurance is to make sure that it's not, even if all the sections are completed in the business continuity plan, doesn't mean that everything, like I said, we need to have a good understanding what needs to be done, the who, what, well, and when, how. So it has to be coherent, like what they put in their document. So it has to make sense. So it's not just a matter of checking the box to say all the sections have been completed. You want to ensure the quality of the information that was included in the plan. So who does that? Is it the corporate business continuity team? Is it something that is delegated to someone else, or do you disregard that and you just have the plan approved by the highest member of that team, and that's it? So again, the objective, the bottom line, the objective is to ensure the deployment of the solution. So having an actionable, usable plan. So again, I would highly recommend that someone goes through what has been put in the plan, so people are able to use it. Okay, so last page in conclusion, and we'll have time for exercise for questions. So a few takeaways. Planning and defining a shared understanding, for me, that's key. So which will meet the organization's expectation. Is it as important as the plan itself? Okay, so having those discussions, it could be on a yearly basis, because again, we have to update the plan. So we want to make sure if we have new top management, are we in line with their objectives? So planning and that shared understanding is very, very important. Roles and responsibilities need to be well defined. So what's a plan owner, a plan admin, a manager? What's their contributions? What is your role? Business continuity. Are you the coach, the mentor, or do you have a certain level of responsibility in the effective challenge process, the quality assurance? Very important to involve the people that do the work in the field, in the experts, your subject matter experts, the IT people. You have to work with the IT people we're talking about solutions. A lot of solutions now are technical. Technology is key now. There's a lot of things that we cannot do if we don't have our technology. So we have to really work closely with our IT recovery people. The plan must be ready to be used, consulted at all times. So I always say, people ask me, when does it have to be done? Well, before the next crisis. You need to have a plan that is workable. So we have to make sure, again, those major changes, what constitute a major change for your organization, to make sure your plan is going to be updated accordingly. So clearly define the maintenance process and deadlines. When is if you're going to do it on an annual basis, do all plans have the same date for their revision or updates? Do you go by anniversary date, the last date, or the last approval date? Again, so what is your consensus within the organization? So what is the maintenance, the updates? Is it on annual, biannual, etc., or more? And finally, the documentation must be structured, easy to navigate, and short, usable. So if you could be using graphs, you could diagrams, etc. So basically, that concludes my presentation. So I pass the microphone to Marie-Élaine, and again, I apologize for all the technical issues this morning. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Élaine, for this session. It was so insightful. There were a lot of comments as well in the chat. One of the questions that was raised is, should we migrate? You did talk about, performing the plans at the process versus organization and, switching to IBS and putting business services. Any insight as to should we not?
Well, again, it depends. It depends on what is required for like regulatory requirements. I know for OSFI, for resiliency, for operational resiliency. My background is all financial institutions. Like the 25 years in business continuity was always with financial institutions. So I know that's where we're at now. So I think that we need to have a set. Start with a set in the organization. They might already have a list of processes or key processes that could be mapped out, and you could start small, like continue having your business continuity plans by business unit, but start the process by a new business impact analysis by process. But you have to have again, the prior understanding, the common knowledge about what is a process, where does it start, like the end-to-end process, the activities. Do you have process owners? So that's going to be important for the next parts, like who was, again, like for I just said the documentation, the approvals, etc. So do you have process owners? So start small. The tools are there. I like the many tools now have the BIA by process. Again, so I think the first thing is, because you're going to have many people participating in BIA by process or business continuity by process, because end-to-end activities could imply more than one team is participating. So again, I think it's a start small, but I think that's in the next few years, I think that's where we're going, is to have BIAs and business continuity plans by process. So I think it's a matter of starting to at least think about it, like the structure. What are your processes within the organization? Can you start with one, product owners, process owners, etc.
And I think this leads well into another question that was asked. When do we migrate from Word and Excel to actually having a tool?
As soon as possible. There's so many advantages of having a tool. Again, just the copy and paste and the quality assurance, go through the plans, what you have in your BIA, in your Word. If you need to run reports, if there's an incident, you want to know like who uses this application, what are your critical, all your critical functions or priorities. If you have Word and Excel, you have to go through tons of like information documents, having Excel sheets with all the list of activities. So it's cumbersome when you have Word and Excel. Again, if that's what you have, you again, Department of Miracles. If that's what you have, that's what you have to use. So, but again, I would say if you could build a business case and just prove without a doubt the advantages of having a centralized tool. It's a big database, so everything is in there. You could even link it to Power BI, have the charts, your KPIs, your quarterly reports. Everything can be pulled directly from the tool. When you do it Word and Excel, it's a manual process, so it's more time.
And there was actually an ask for recommendations for a tool.
I could recommend one for sure. I've been using Pares Solutions. If you want more information, you can talk directly to Marie-Élaine. But I mean, I've been using Pares Solutions for years now, and it's a very powerful tool, and it's a very easy for the business units to use it. Even if they go into it once a year, it's very straightforward. Just follow the different sections. So yeah, I mean, again. Marie-Élaine, you could add that one. You could add something on that one, but if they're interested, for sure, you're available for demos.
Yeah, and to your point, regarding, having access to a tool also, makes you also a source of truth in that, endeavor to meet any operational resilience information. There's so much wealth of data that we gather in our BIA and our plans. There's someone who's asking to get access to the actual, to the microphone. I know the other Marie-Élaine who's joining. I don't know if that's something that we can actually do with Zoom
No,
webinar.
it's not possible. Sorry. So maybe
If you
write your
can,
question in the chat or in email. Yeah.
yeah, thank you. In terms, and another question was, regarding the plans, should we do some plans that are specific to like financial crises or, specific to special risks
Well,
or
again,
cyber? Yeah.
that's what I would call. Well, that's what I call in my language a playbook.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of different requests that come from often from your upper management. We have plans that cover the 4 scenarios, but they want a specific situation that they're concerned. So what I used to call it's on their radar, so it keeps them up at night. It's something they really want a deep dive in one specific risk or threat. So they want to make sure that the organization is really ready for that type of a threat or incident or risk, whatever. And I gave 2 examples, like the cybersecurity. They really wanted a specific. The last where I worked, that they really wanted a crisis management plan, a playbook for the crisis management team, for really a strategic level for cybersecurity with different scenarios, different types of cybersecurity. Cyber threats, and another one for major loss of data. And when we talked about major loss, it was major loss. So are we ready for that type of situation, and who would do what, the communications of templates, all the teams that need to be involved, etc. So it was up and above a very generic crisis management plan. It was really a specific. So yes, I would see very well if you get any requests like financial crisis, civil unrest, or whatever, like any specifics that is a concern for your organization.
And it could trickle down to the operational level, not just remain
Yes.
at the, just
Are we
because,
ready,
yeah.
again, are we ready to face this type of situation? Because we say the cause is not important to business continuity plans, but this is the opposite, is the cause is important. So they really want to say, okay, in this specific situation, how do we handle this? So we want like a playbook. It could be at a higher level, but it could really go down to the operational plans.
Yeah, you just need to be cautious not to have too many of those, because otherwise you're going to be, swamped. There was one question regarding to what level should employees be aware of what's in the business continuity plan?
Okay, I would say everyone needs to know that the company has business continuity plans, that there's a crisis management team and plan. There's different levels of incidents, incident 1, level 2, like etc. But the people that need to have access to the plans are the people that are identified in the plans having a role and a responsibility. So if you name someone in your plan that has a specific role, that who does what, when, and how, well, they need to have a copy of the plan, or at least be aware that they've been named in the plan and they have a role and responsibility. I would not share the entire plans with all employees, but they need to know that there is a business continuity program in place, and there is a team that takes care of different types of scenarios or different types of incidents, and in due process, they would know if they have what they need. Their manager or their team leader will let them know if they have a role to play. But if you name someone in the plan, that person needs to know and need to have access to the plan. That's for sure.
I mean, there's lots of conversation going on. I think there's lots of interest on having a tool to assist in managing your business continuity, plans, and people asking when, you did say, as early as possible, but when is it a good time to decide to, get a tool?
Well, if you're if you're revamping your plans, you're saying you want to change your plans, you want to go from whatever you have 4 scenarios or whatever. If you're in uh, a process of reviewing, it would be a good time to do that. Any time is good, I would say. By experience, what we've decided, like our program was like on the 3-year program, year 1, year 2, year 3, let's say. So when we actually got the budget to go to get a tool, we said, okay, next year our main activity will be transferring the business continuity plans from Word to the tool, to Parasolution. So what we did at the same time, when we did the copy and paste into the tool, we reviewed the plans at the same time. But that was like the major project for the year, was to migrate, because we had over 200 plans. So to migrate the plans from Word to the tool. So that was, but it has to be planned, because that's a big undertaking, because you have to do a lot of copy and paste. It depends on the number of plans that you have, but it could be at any time. But just plan it to say, okay, at the beginning of the year or for next year, our program will be really concentrating on getting everyone in the tool. So there's going to be some sort of training. We have to set up all the admin part, because there is some admin part to do with setting up the tool, the hierarchy. So that's why all the decisions, do I have my plans by business unit, by sub-plans, like what is the level of detail I have in my plans? Is it by building, by city, etc., by type of business, etc., by process? So if you're doing already that has to be already decided before going to a tool, because you're going to have to set it up in the tool. In the tool, there's
Yeah.
a so there's certain decisions. So when I say as soon as possible, there's advantages, but you have to. There's a lot of activities getting to that point.
Yeah, I think people shouldn't be seeing the tool as being the magic. If you don't have a program, well, it's good that you ask yourself what you want to do before getting a tool. And to your point earlier, you could also decide if you already are happy with it. You have, have them uploaded into the tool rather than copying and pasting. There's ways of automating that process to make it also. There was also questions of, well, exporting these days. I'm not sure about the question, but let's say once the information's in that system, you need to be able to also be able to export it if ever you're locked into, you don't want to be locked into the tool for sure, if ever there was any any changes. Also a question regarding emergency response separate from business continuity.
Again,
Yeah.
But it
Should
depends
we
on
or not?
Yeah, well, it depends on your organization. Again, it depends on where it sits in your organization. Is it something within one of the teams? Emergency response, depending on the type of organization you are in, as well. I mean, again, I can talk a lot about financial institutions. So emergency procedures were something very important, but they're not part of the business continuity plan, but we would refer to them because it wasn't part of any of the business unit's responsibilities. But it's an important part, because if you're in the building and you have an evacuation, you have to know like, what to do, etc. So emergency response was very important. It was handled by another team, but we referred to their documents. It wasn't within the business continuity plans. Again, it depends. Like I said, it depends if you're in an environment where you're in a museum. What's
A plant or factory.
a factory. So emergency procedures might be very important. It's part of your process. If there's injuries, if there's an accident or whatever, you need to have more detail about emergency procedures and those types of plans than in a business office. So again, it's the famous, it depends.
And it goes back to your point regarding terminology as well, and making sure there are some comments here saying that emergency response plan is different from a business continuity plan, a crisis management plan. So dividing roles and responsibilities so that you can, divide and conquer. If everyone's in charge of everything, then, nothing's going to get done, and be clear as to what goes into, which bucket. But
No, absolutely. That's why I say the planning and the defining of shared understanding is it's as important of the plans. So everyone has to have that common understanding. When we talk about business continuity plan, where does it start? Where does it finish? The roles, responsibilities. What do we include? Level of detail is such a key issue. Like what do I write in my plan? You're going to be defining. When I say different stakeholders, if internal audit has to review all your plans, they might want to have a level of detail that necessarily you don't want to have in your plans, but you have to have that understanding and get to a decision point, like what's is considered like compliant for your business, for your organization. So these are all the types of questions that you have to have prior to starting either redesigning or creating or updating your plans. And that could change over time. You have different people, the environment is changing, political, geopolitical, everything is changing. So you need to have follow that. Like when we talked about the risks, the threats, etc. So you need to update that. Like you have to work with your operational risk people to say what are the risks are out there, emerging risk or other risks. Are our business continuity plans meet those goals? Are we comfortable what we have in our business continuity plans? Extra.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for all your, your great insight that you shared with us today. I hope we were able to answer your questions. We do have, as we mentioned, Élaine is one of our instructors. There are courses available, the CBCI course, obviously. There's a new course also that was just introduced, which is a crisis communication course. If you do want, further information, please don't hesitate to go to our website. And, we really thank you. You can also connect with us on LinkedIn. And if we do have, and we'll be also making the recording available, and everyone will share their email address, we'll send the deck over.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.